All right. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents. I know this is a kind of unusual time for me to stream. And funny enough, the moment I go live, I get a little notification here that says Hangouts are going away. And let me take a look at this. Hangouts on air is going away later this year. For quick streaming, try. Okay, well, I guess that's an announcement we can go ahead and start with. I guess I'm gonna have to find a way to do streaming differently in the future because the way I've been doing streaming up to this point is going away per YouTube. Wonderful YouTube, you're just making great decisions about everything, aren't you? But I have had just to give everybody kind of a without giving away too much. I have not had a easy week. There's been something that's come up in my family that I've been dealing with. It has been emotionally draining, and when it came to this, to making videos and getting content up, I just did not have the energy. So this weekend, there's not going to be a regular video upload. But at the same time, I didn't want to go without putting out any content at all. So I'm hosting this impromptu stream, just kind of talk to whoever wants to come hang out. Right now, I don't see anybody in the chat. I did put it open to my patrons, and Mag hardly ever misses a stream, so she's here. But if there's anybody who wants to talk about anything, now is the time to do it. There might be a lot of open air, but this is just kind of a informal hangout stream. So hello, Mag. Looks like you're the only one here right now.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say I'm sorry. Me laughing as interrupting you. Just the timing of that was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it gives you the notification right when you go live, like you're about to have another conversation.
Yeah.
But another announcement to make. One thing I will be doing this weekend, and I'm actually doing it as we speak, is trying to get more of my videos uploaded not on BitChute, but on BitTube. That is bit.tube. Here, I'll go ahead and put the link in. Let me get the link here and get it into the chat for anybody who shows up. But BitTube is another alternative video sharing site, and they, unlike BitChute, have managed to get an app on the App Store. So I know that there was a while back, I did a video exclusively on BitChute to try and get more people to go subscribe there. And what I discovered is the complaint a lot of people had is, well, I primarily watch videos on my phone, and BitChute doesn't have an app and it doesn't work on the phone. Well, BitTube now is an alternative video sharing site that has an app. They also have an extension called Airtime that you can add to the Google Chrome browser. I know Shane Killian has been advertising that a lot, but I've recently downloaded it myself, and it's a way to earn cryptocurrency that is used on BitTube. So I would encourage everyone to try that out. Unlike BitChute is great at whenever I upload a video on YouTube, it immediately is downloaded and shared on BitChute. BitTube has a similar function, but for whatever reason, a lot of times when I try to migrate my videos from YouTube to BitTube, I just get error notifications saying it was unable to download. So I got to do it the manual way and upload the video there, which takes a lot of time and is difficult to do, but I will work on trying to get more of my content up there.
My question is, I don't know for this. Are you going to share? Are you going to put every single one of your old videos on there? Or are you going to just pick and choose one of the either most viewed or your best videos? Are you going to
probably my best videos? Reason being, I've made a lot of videos at this point. A lot of the early ones were not the greatest in the world. So eventually, obviously, I'd like to get all my videos up there, but for now, I'll start with just the more popular ones.
Okay. Well, I guess for the viewers, when you start transferring your videos on there, if there's one that you missed, go comment, hey, I wanted to see that video on over there or whatever not.
Of course. It says we've got 3 watching the stream right now. I'm guessing at least 2 of those are myself and yourself. So.
I'm not looking at it.
Okay, well, we got 2 viewers right now. No one in the chat, but hello to those of you who are watching.
So, I'm guessing you didn't. I'm guessing because you were really busy, you didn't look at new stuff. But anything on top of your head you want to talk about is kind of today with 2 cents?
Okay, that's fair. Cover the regular current event stuff. Well, I don't think it's any mystery that the biggest news story this week was probably the whole situation with Iran, where the U.S. drone was flying, by the U.S.'s account of things, in international waters, by the Iranians' account of thing in Iranian territorial waters. Uh, but the Iranians shot down a drone. President Trump was allegedly going to respond with a military strike against some Iranian sites, and he ultimately chose not to do so and canceled those strikes, explaining on Twitter why that saying some interesting things like perhaps the Iranians made a mistake shooting down that drone, or either, and you can interpret that several ways, either made a mistake as in they shouldn't have done that, it was bad reasoning, or they didn't mean to do it, or whatever the case may be. But again, I've talked about my thoughts on Iran at least several times over the past year in these streams, and what people don't understand is, I think by and large in the public discourse, what people don't understand is that Iran is not interested in a full-scale war with the United States or any other Western country. Iran has certain aspirations, one of which would be to become the dominant power in the Middle East, specifically the both religious and political leader of the Shiite school of Islam in the region, but they've also more or less accept that that is not likely to happen anytime soon. So if they can't rule the Middle East as the Shiite caliphate, they at least want to continue ruling their own people and expanding their sphere of influence in whatever manner they can, be that by supporting groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Israel, and or Syria, Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian regime. But they don't. An all-scale war with the United States would not be beneficial to them staying in power. Rather, any action they take should be seen through the lens of them wanting to project a certain image to their people, and maintaining control over what they're already in control of. The Iranian people have already overthrown within the past century, Iran has undergone 2 different coups, and Iran understands that whatever threats they may face externally, the greatest threat to them would be their own people turning on them, their own military turning on them, and overthrowing the Ayatollah and his government. So they're trying to, everything they do should be seen through the light of wanting to maintain control of their own people. And I would say that for all the various politicians, John Bolton being one of the ones in the spotlight, or who say we ought to go to war with Iran, my question is, setting aside the morality of war for a second, what do you practically hope to achieve by invading Iran? We already learned from Iraq that that just going in and I'm going to say, for the record, yes, the Iranian regime is a totalitarian, very oppressive regime. Horrible for the people, both economically restrictive, religiously restrictive. It's one of the most oppressive countries in the world right now. But is it a solution to simply go in and destroy that regime? Because as we've learned in Iraq, as we've learned in Libya, as we've learned in virtually every place the United States has intervened in for the past decade, simply displacing a bad government does not make the situation any better. All it does is create a power vacuum for a group even worse to step in and take control. Libya being a more extreme example, ISIS in Iraq being they are an extreme example as well. But essentially, just getting rid of someone who's bad doesn't mean the situation's going to be better once they're gone. That's kind of what's going on with that.
That kind of did just remind me of something. I've heard the argument before that we as a justification for war, for example, trying to think exactly what they said, to overthrow really oppressive governments. For example, they would use stuff like to overthrow like Germany with Nazis and whatever not. They think that war is okay if we're going against a really bad oppressive government. But I don't know. I still don't really agree with it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to address a comment here. Cyberpunk Agora says, does Iran have a lot of oil? The answer to that question is yes. And this is another point I've talked about, but U.S. foreign policy is centered. The question, regardless of the rhetoric in the media, regardless of the rhetoric that certain politicians make, the question to always ask when you want to understand the motive, like why does this country want to go to war? Why does this country not want to go to war? The question to always ask is who stands to benefit the most if the country goes to war. Now, and if you understand that, you'll understand what the real motive is. So the question is, who is making money, who's not making money, who's benefiting, who's not benefiting. Now, the US dollar is propped up by the petrodollar. The fact ever since 73, I think it was 73, when Henry Kissinger made his deal with Saudi Arabia, the US dollar has effectively been backed not by gold but by oil, in virtue of the fact that the dollar is the international standard for buying and selling oil. Every country in the world has demand for dollars because they need dollars in order to buy oil. Well, so back when you had when the Shah of Iran was effectively a puppet government of the United States, or whether we're talking about Saudi Arabia, whether we're talking about Iran or Venezuela or any country with vast oil reserves, the U.S. has a direct interest of keeping a regime in power that is completely loyal to the United States, because the U.S. needs to keep that petrodollar in place. Iran is and has been since 79 one of the biggest threats to that, in virtue of the fact that the Ayatollah is diametrically opposed to the United States. So the U.S. has engaged in a foreign policy that even if we can't control the government of Iran, we want to put them in a situation where they are threatened by us to the point that they're not going to threaten the petrodollar. So, but the U.S. would, of course, love to unseat the Ayatollah and put in a new government. Now, they wouldn't really care whether it's a democracy or a dictatorship, so long as it's totally loyal to the United States and committed to giving the U.S. unfettered access to the Iranian oil fields and 100% committed to maintaining the petrodollar. Manny K-Built points out, he says, John Bolton and Pompeo are shills for Israel and Saudi Arabia. There's another point to talk about the various every country in the region has various interests. Obviously, Israel would have a very high interest in unseating the Ayatollahs and the government of Iran, in virtue of the fact that Iran wants to destroy Israel. Saudi Arabia has interest in getting rid of Iran, in virtue of the fact that Saudi Arabia represents the Sunni sect of Islam and Iran represents the Shia sect of Islam. So both those countries would have direct interest in seeing Iran destroyed. The U.S. has a direct interest in seeing Iran destroyed, in virtue of the fact that Iran is a potential threat to the petrodollar. There are a lot of different players with their own unique motives that may or may not align. Saudi Arabia obviously is not friends with Israel by any stretch of the imagination, but their interests align in virtue of the fact that they both like to see the Iranian government destroyed.
I'm keeping myself muted because there's construction outside. Can you hear anything?
Construction-wise, no. I'm fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
And to be perfectly honest, I'm not chiming in on that subject just because I know zip about it, so I don't think I should say much on that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's like every other news story that's getting pushed in the news. They're trying to distract you from what's really going on. And when it comes to U.S. foreign military interventions, the public is always sold one of two narratives. The competing narratives are the pro-war people try to paint some kind of picture about how the American people are threatened, or the people of the nation that were going to invade are threatened, and it's our moral duty to invade that country, get rid of that oppressive evil government, and free those people from the oppressive evil government, or protect the national security of the people in the United States. The opposing narrative that the opposite political party takes is that war is inherently evil. Innocent children are going to die in this war, which happens to be true. Does happen in every situation, but the U.S. is unjustified in taking such aggressive action against another government, be it an evil oppressive regime or not. And but notice that that is the kind of art when George Bush was in office, that is exactly the kind of argument the Democrats made. Yet when Obama took office, there were even more drone strikes and more foreign interventions than under the Bush administration. And when Trump was elected largely on a more isolationist, non-foreign war type policy. Well, it's certainly, despite the fact that Trump ran as a Republican, he didn't have the same warfare mentality that George Bush did. Yet notice that the U.S. is still taking foreign military intervention, even with Trump in office. Despite the narratives that the various political parties make, no matter who's in office, the same stuff keeps happening. It proves that it's not that all the rhetoric is just that rhetoric. There are powerfully placed people behind the scenes who have specific interests that always get their way. And it has absolutely nothing to do with freedom or national security. It has to do with the various power players having their own interests satisfied. Manny K-Built says, what do you guys think about 5G and the IoT? 5G, I think, is I guess I'd have to hear more. What as far as the controversy, does 5G cause cancer or whatever it may be? I've seen no reason to think that's true. But I'm gonna have to be honest. I don't. That's not a subject I'm particularly well versed in. So I couldn't really comment it on it in any meaningful sense. IoT, you're gonna have to fill me in on what that stands for.
When I think 5G, because of games, I think money. So I'm very confused.
5G, like 5,000. Yeah, he's talking about like 4G, 3G data method of using data as opposed to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Internet of Things. All electronic appliances, commodities are connected to the internet. Again, I'll have to be honest, not something I've thought about very deeply. I think there are benefits to that, but there are also, there are risks to that. For example, when all electronic devices are attached to the internet, it potentially opens up those devices to being hacked by outside actors. I know one thing that concerns, for example, when the more devices you have attached to the internet, the more convenient there's a great deal of convenience and efficiency that can result from that. There's also security risks. For example, everyone talks about how Amazon has created a service where Alexa can effectively be attached to your home and control the locks on your doors, so that when an Amazon delivery person comes to your house, Alexa can unlock the door, let them in to bring the package inside. Very convenient, but with that comes the risk. Well, do you really want a machine being able to let people in and out of your house? Can a machine be tricked? Could someone potentially use that to break into your home? Absolutely.
My thing with all kind of stuff like that is just that it's convenient, but like, do we really need it? Do we need to spend the money to really have all that stuff? Like, I kind of would go back to the time to where because there was a time when we didn't have all that stuff and we were all just fine. I don't get why everyone needs to have the smart house, as people call it. I don't see the point in that. It's a house. I don't understand. Like, I don't get the use of having like all this different technology stuff. Like, I get to the point to where it's like, it's more convenient or whatever not. But at the same time, how much more of your wallet are you having to spend for? And in reality, that's not really convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I never really grew up with a lot of technology when I was a kid anyway, so I don't really see the point of it much in the first place. Like, I don't really care for having a lot of technology in my house, period.
Yeah, Cyberpunk Agora says, trust no one, especially Alexa. Agreed.
Yeah, I don't like any Alexa stuff. Not just because of like narrative stuff or whatever not. I just don't see the point in having her. So I just would rather not. And honestly, she annoys the heck out of me with her voice.
Mm-hmm. No, I gotta say more broadly about Amazon. I both like and dislike Amazon. I like Amazon in virtue of it is a success story about a market entrepreneur. Jeff Bezos started that company in his garage. He took the orders online. He packaged up the packages and drove them to the post office himself. And through his own ingenuity as an entrepreneur, he built it into an amazing company that makes everyone's lives better, which is why it's as big as it is today. But unfortunately, like so many market entrepreneurs, once he became wealthy, he then shifted from being a market entrepreneur to being a political entrepreneur, and he now is actively lobbying the government and working to achieve special favors from the government to give Amazon an advantage over competitors. So despite the fact that his company was built on free market principles and is largely an example of the free market successes, he couldn't just leave it at that and has to become just another political hack, paying off the government to do things his way and make things better for him. So
I'm trying to remember what that's called. Corporatism.
Yes, corporatism.
He keeps pushing for corporatism, and that's the part that I would get mad at. And so many companies, like the one that I really come into mind are Starbucks and then Apple. Those were really bottom ones that started pretty much from nothing, and then they grew into something really big, and now look where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just makes me sad, because you make it so that it's even harder for other people like you can start up.
Cyberpunk Agarus, I do see your question. What are your thoughts on intellectual property? Thank you for the question. I'm just gonna have to say that my thoughts on that are a little too scattered at the moment to give you a concise answer. One of these days I will make a video on that topic, but it's of all the issues that come up, it's not one that I'm as confident to explain right now.
I didn't hear what the question was. What was it?
He said, "What are my thoughts on intellectual property?"
Oh, okay.
Now, intellectual property, I'm going to say for the record, it's something that I've noticed a lot of libertarians are divided on. Those of the ANCAP variety are pretty much united against intellectual property. Those of the more minarchist type might make an argument for it. Of all the things I've done a lot of reading on, it's one of the ones I've done the least amount of reading on. So right now, I just need to defer and say that I'm at the moment not prepared to give a comprehensive statement about my thoughts on intellectual property. I know there are other YouTubers who are. SO comes to mind. I know he's talked about that on previous streams. It's not something I've particularly researched enough that I'm comfortable getting in depth about what my thoughts are on that.
And I know this is a pretty obvious statement, but think of really saying that instead of just saying bullshit, because I know people who don't really know a lot about what they're talking about, but they'll just say the bullshit anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I don't want to do, here's something to talk about. One thing, I fully acknowledge. I'm going to say right hand. I'm going to acknowledge Sargon's law right here. And as soon as I start criticizing other people about doing something they shouldn't be doing, I will immediately prove myself to be a hypocrite, because whenever you try to accuse someone of a character flaw, the character flaw inevitably applies to you as well. So I want to say for the record, as soon as I say this, I know someone will look through my content and find an example of me being hypocritical on this point, because it's inevitable. But I do think this is a legitimate criticism of both others and a legitimate criticism myself that I need to watch out for. That is that when you YouTubers or anyone who is a commentator or likes to talk about political, economic, world issues, the more you start looking into reading about, studying, developing your thoughts on certain issues, the more people have a tendency to start believing you are an expert on everything. It's obviously not true. And this kind of applies to my recent video, my article, which I then made into a video about the Dunning-Kruger effect. But it is very easy, once you've started studying something, it's very easy to start believing you know everything. And that anytime someone asks you, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? You start responding as though you're an expert and everyone ought to take you seriously. It's obviously not true. No matter how much you study, you'll never be an expert on everything. And in fact, as Socrates famously said, the more you learn, well, I this is kind of a paraphrase, but I think the principle comes back to the Socratic method, is that the more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know. And anytime you run into someone who seems to think they're an expert on everything, they're never wrong. Basically, if someone disagrees with them, the only possible explanations are they're either ignorant or they're just flat out lying and being dishonest. Odds are that person isn't quite as smart as they really think they are. If there's a lot out there to learn, and if you really think you've got it all figured out, that you know you've got the correct answer when it comes to everything, you're probably not quite as intelligent as you think you are. So I try my best to, if someone asks me, what are your thoughts on this? And I haven't done sufficient research to be able to give you my comprehensive thoughts, I'm better off just saying that's not something I'm an expert on, or not something I'm prepared to give you a detailed exposition of. Better just to admit when I don't know than to look like an idiot trying to pretend like I do.
Agreed. And question that's coming close to 30. How long do you want this stream to be?
We'll see. I see more people are tuning in. We got 8 people watching now. Scorch, hello. Sorry you couldn't make it to the stream, but again, as I already let my patrons know, this is definitely a weird time for me to stream, not a normal time of day when I would. So
yeah, though it's a weekend, people still work on the weekend, so that's kind of what I was worried about when you had the time.
Shane Lackey says, I'm always wrong, so clearly do your own research. Well, another thing to say is that also when we start following certain YouTubers, certain commentators, certain professors or personalities that have shown themselves to be smart on a given topic, there's a tendency to uncritically accept everything they say. I would encourage, if you are a fan of mine, I love you, but you should never uncritically accept everything I say either. I'm as much subject to fact checking as anyone. If you think I've said something wrong, by all means, feel free to express that.
I feel like the biggest quote by AMCAP, like the one phrase of AMCAP, should just be question everything.
Question everything. Should you question that?
Yes.
Again, there's a example of a self-refuting. You should question everything. Well, then should I question that I should question everything? It's being
anytime you're ever gonna ask that, I'm just gonna say this again.
Yes.
Where the chicken come from?
Yes. A healthy amount of skepticism is helpful in learning, but if you as Descartes famously said, I think, therefore I am, there are some things that you need not be skeptical of. For example, the fact that you exist, the laws of logic are valid, reality is real and can be known. Boy, the streams could pretty deep pretty fast getting into philosophical matters.
Yeah. Now, about what you kind of just said about where we come from, whatever or not. Now, someone could spin that as the questioning, rather in the scientific sense or the religious sense, but I know that's not what you were talking about.
Well,
yeah.
Science, religion, philosophy, all very deep fields that the moment you start talking about one thing will instantly start overlapping to other things, and which is why I said before, the more you start studying a topic, if you find someone who thinks they're an expert in every topic under the sun, odds are they're not quite as smart as they think they are. Because once you start studying scientific matters, philosophical matters, metaphysics, I mean, there are a lot of terms that come to mind. The more you realize that there is a lot out there. There's a lot of smart people in history that have had a lot to say about certain things. And if you think you know it all, you're probably not quite as smart as you think you are. The more, and in fact, the more you learn, the more you'll realize how little you actually know.
I would say, as I don't want to say a rule of thumb when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I would say when you're researching a topic, don't just look under what one person says. Look under many different sources or different books or whatever, not by different people. So you have not only just one person, but you have multiple perspectives. And if they all lead to, I don't want to say the same narrative, but if multiple people are seeing the same similar patterns, maybe there's some truth to what the guy said, basically.
Or at the
What I
very
say
least,
makes sense.
try to read people who disagree with you. One mistake
Yes.
we're all prone to make is we only investigate sources that agree with us. I have tried to dedicate, and believe me, it is painful, but I try to dedicate to watching at least 2 videos from the Young Turks or Marxist YouTube channels or whatever, or any other subject on something I disagree every week, just because I don't want to get caught in my own echo chamber where I'm only listening to people who agree with me.
Yeah. Something I guess I can say so you know how like a lot of ANCAPs they really try to strive for like really logical arguments, and they keep like, I will hold to my facts, whatever not, and the left really don't do that as much. Do you sense?
Well, I think I understand when you say stick to logic. I mean, you want logically valid arguments derived from first principles. You want to deal with facts and not feelings. I mean, yes, I understand where you're.
Hmm.
ANCAPs try to focus a great deal on arguing properly, whereas people on the political left want to argue based on emotions and feelings, not on facts and logic.
A phenomena from what I've seen is, if you want to, honestly the word convert, but if you want to get them to understand and get them interested in what you're talking about so they keep researching, know your audience. For example, with them, to talk about a certain subject, not, you don't have to talk about fields, whatever not, but talk about something that they emotionally will care about. Because if you talk about something they emotionally care about, they'll want to keep looking into what thing you're talking about, or they'll just say you're an idiot. But from what I've noticed, from not only with just me being a Democrat, but also when I've talked to other Democrats as well, when I talk to them about them with subjects that they personally care about, they will have a much higher chance of actually timing in. But if you just talk about just straight facts, whatever, not no real emotions in there, they start like losing interest or just disconnect and not really care anymore. But if I talk about subjects they actually care about and try to get, there's like a speech term for it, but I can't remember it right now. But basically, if you tie to their emotions, but still keep to what you're talking about as facts, they will get more or emotionally invested in, and they'll keep wanting to go more or learn more about it. Because you're not going to get them in just one speech or one time talking to them. But if you get them invested and they'll want to keep looking into it, you may have a chance of, I don't want to say the word converting again, but you get my point. That was a
Yeah,
phenomenon I kind of thought of last night. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
I think so. Did you get them emotionally invested in what you're in the subject?
Yeah. That doesn't mean you stray away from the facts. You just talk about subjects that they emotionally will care about.
Exactly, and people aren't going to listen to something they care absolutely nothing about.
Yeah.
That's just,
Yeah. For
I think that's
example, they
self-evidently
care
obvious.
really a lot about homeless people, but if you talk about how the government has actually punished institutions that are actually trying to help them, they'll start questioning certain things, or they'll just call you an idiot. Yeah. I was just trying to fill in the air.
Oh, I understand. Like I said, there might be some open air time on the stream because it's pretty impromptu, just hanging out. Scorch
Yeah.
88 says connect emotionally and then educate. Yeah, I think that's kind of
Yes.
what Meg's trying to say.
Yes.
So far in the chat, the active folks we've had have been Cyberpunk Agorist, Shane Lackey, Manny K-Built, and Scorch, all loyal viewers to the live streams. I've noticed there's kind of a core group of all the fans of my channel. Some of them clearly watch all the videos. Some only watch live streams. Some only watch certain kinds of videos. There are very few people that watch it all. There's kind of a core group of fans that do watch it all. And from those of you who show up I've generally noticed those that show up in the streams are the hardcore fans that watch everything that comes out. So thanks a lot to all of you.
We notice.
Patrick Rooney says, "Worry not, 2 cents. I got no life since school's out. Nothing to do until 4:30 mass." Well, I'm sorry to hear that. There are times I wish my life would just slow down to the point where I could honestly say I have nothing to do. But right now, the problem is I've got my job. I've got obviously this channel. I've got my small business I'm trying to manage. But then between that, family issues arise, and I got to take some time to just relax and have fun as well. So that's really what happened this weekend. I was trying to come up with what video I was going to put out, but then between all those other things, and then I had a family related issue that came up that was very emotionally draining. I just finally said today I have to take a week off. There's not going to be a video, but I'll do a really informal stream to at least put something out there for everybody to know what's going on.
Something is better than nothing.
Yeah, something's better than nothing. As Scorch asked, how was my day so far? Pretty good. I got some household chores I've been putting off all week done. Went to the gym, came back home, and started this stream.
Enjoy with a nice cup of Joe.
Oh, yes, I had. As before we were getting started, Mag was commenting she could hear me slurping because I was drinking coffee. I always, it's funny because during these streams, you never, when you're talking, you hear everything that's going around on you. But for those that are watching, you never know what kind of sounds are coming through the mic that might, what kind of awkward sounds are being picked up by your mic. You never know until I review the streams afterwards.
That is very true.
Cyberpunk says wants to talk about things a little less serious. Has any of you seen anything from E3 2019? Personally, no. I've been pretty busy. Is there something particular that comes to mind? Scorch says yes.
Can you say what that yes is? Because I know nothing about that.
I don't either, but there is a time lapse between when we speak and when they hear us. So
a few seconds though.
Cyberpunk 2077 and Doom Eternal get my support just because of how it triggers certain people. Yes, that is something. I did see Paul Joseph Watson's video about Cyberpunk 2077. I don't personally know a lot about that, but I know it's based on a board game that came out in the 1980s that essentially predicted that in the year 2022, the United States would have fallen due to certain cultural phenomena, in particular, overemphasis on diversity. And it was eerily familiar with the common political narratives that are being pushed in the media today.
Well, all I'm going to say is not that there isn't streamings of maybe that could be true, but just like how people were saying back in 2012, 2024, or whatever the Mayan calendar thing said, I don't believe any of the sort of superstition stuff. I just wait for when it happens.
All right.
I don't believe in... There are so many different things. I believe that you can tell about the past, but you can never predict the future, because the thing is that the smallest changes in the present can have drastic changes for the future. So I believe it is impossible to tell the future. Now, I believe you could talk about maybe a few different scenarios that could happen, but you will never know what happened until it does happen. You can make a prediction that is roughly based on facts, but you don't know if that's 100% going to happen. Sorry.
Nope, it's okay. It's something that I would comment on, but I know that's that conversation is gonna get really deep really fast. So I'm quick gonna finish my thoughts on gaming, since that's what we're talking about, the future of gaming. Obviously, I'm not a really big gamer, although I'm very into Pokemon and Halo. Obviously, Pokemon Sword and Shield is coming out later this year. I'm pretty excited for that.
I want to see the streams again.
Yes, I do. And as soon as that starts, I will get back to streaming. I actually was considering if there's another Pokemon game an older one I can find an emulator for and stream, because the Switch is helpful in that I can stream the Switch using OBS. The older Pokemon games, I know there are ways to do it, but I do not know how to stream the 3DS or the original DS. I know there are Scorch says he still challenges me to a battle. Yes, we will battle, Scorch.
I would love to see you battling with someone else, but I know that's pretty difficult to do, like we visually seeing it.
I was going to battle Scorch with on Pokemon Let's Go. The problem is I discovered to do it, you need the Switch subscription, which I have not gotten around to doing.
I would also love to see you play like other games other than just Pokemon. I know you primarily just play Pokemon, but I'd like to see other games as well.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Pokemon and Halo are the two I've really been into. On the other hand, Halo 6 is still in the works. There was a trailer. There was a really generic looking trailer for Halo 6, but since then, I don't think anything new has come out about that. That seems to be on the back burner for Microsoft.
Okie dokie.
Mm-hmm. The only gaming I've been doing recently, in what little before I go to bed, I've been playing classic Pokemon Pearl on the original DS. Again, that's something I'd be more than happy to stream that, except I have no idea how to stream an original DS.
Oh, that's my childhood.
Yeah. And now on that point, a lot of Pokemon fans have predicted that the next remake is going to be Pokemon Diamond and Pearl will be remade for the Switch as the next remakes, which very well may be true, but who knows?
I would say if they do that, I wonder how they're going to, either if they're going to do it or not, but I wonder how they're going to implement the contest portion.
Like contest portion?
Yeah.
Okay. That's never been a favorite part of I've never particularly enjoyed that aspect of Pokemon games, but
well, I never really enjoyed it in the games itself, but maybe they can make an improvement on it in the Switch. Because if they're going to remake it, they might as well make it better than the original.
Oh, of course.
And I only really like the contest because I grew up with the anime.
Because what?
Anime.
The anime? Oh, yes. I grew up with the anime as well. I don't think I watched as much. I haven't watched as much of the later series. When they got put on Netflix, I watched Pokemon XYZ, some of it at least. I watched some Sun and Moon. I was really disappointed with that. Once they finally get Gen 8 out, I imagine they will come up with an anime where Ash goes to the Galar region. I hope they do a better job than they did with Sun and Moon, because that was really disappointing.
Yeah, I've seen every single episode of Pokemon up until X and Y, but when X and Y came out, when Sun and Moon came out, I just said no, I'm done. I was so disappointed with X and Y. And when Sun and Moon came out, I was just done. No, I'm not watching the anime anymore. Mm-hmm. I gave up.
I hate to say it, because I know the cartoon thing, like most cartoons, the idea is that cartoons don't age. But I feel like in the context of Pokemon, where Ash is going to all these regions and learning all these things and gaining all this experience, it doesn't work that Ash never ages, because you'd have to believe that there still has to be some aspect of realism that connects you to the story. And if Ash has been to all these different lands, caught all these different Pokemon, battled all these different people, learned all these different things, he has to have matured. And especially with Sun and Moon, where you see Ash just like the different animation and Ash still acting like a little kid, it's not believable. I don't believe that someone who's done all these things wouldn't have, if not physically matured, at least emotionally matured in some sense. And it just doesn't work. I feel like it would work. I'd like Pokemon anime better if Ash was like 30 years old now and had both mentally and physically matured in virtue of all his journeys.
Well, two things to that. One, that's why I think Pokemon Origins is a little bit better on that kind of subject. And the second thing I'm going to say is that's why I was so hopeful for X and Y, because it seemed like during the beginning of X and Y, he looked like he was older. He acted a little bit more mature, because you used to have Brock, or the other girl, that's kind of more of the leader of the group. But now Ash was kind of like more of the leader of the group, because he had a little more experience and he seemed like he had matured a little bit more. He was still a kid, but he kind of acted a little bit more mature, and as I said, he looked more mature. I was so hopeful that he would have finally aged. No, he didn't. And I get for the fact that as a marketing, they don't want to age him up, because they're trying to gear him towards about 10 years old. But here's the problem where it comes to that. most of the fans that still consistently watch, of course you're going to still get new ones, but most of the fans that still watch it are the ones from Misty's era. I forget what that generation's called.
Yeah, the original
The
generation.
originals.
I
Most
was
people
able
are
to deal
still
with it
watching
when
it
Misty
from
left
that
the show, but when
age.
Brock, I couldn't deal with it without Brock. Brock was the core of that group.
I was able to watch it past that.
Yeah, Cyberpunk Agorist makes another valid point. Shouldn't all of Ash's Pokemon be level 100 at this point? Well, I wouldn't say all of them, but at least Pikachu should be.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't remember what exactly the fans call it, but basically the fans kind of say he gets rebooted every season as he starts off from nothing. And I guess that's supposed to correlate towards the fact that when you play the game, you kind of start off with just the original starter and you kind of start off with nothing. But again, as you stated, that doesn't make sense if you only have one character. They should have
Right.
had multiple characters, but no.
And that's like you said with Pokemon Origins, that's or the actual games themselves. That's why they have different characters for every region, because each character starts off a new journey. The only characters that overlap between all the games have been red, blue, have been red and blue and green. I guess green and Let's Go, but red and blue in particular.
Yeah. I've kind of come to this realization to where like I will still always love the anime and that will always still be in my heart because that's what I grew up on. But I've kind of learned that the anime will never be as good as the games. It will never be.
Oh, I would agree.
But I still like some seasons and especially some movies I still think are amazingly good. For example, Diamond Pearl. A lot of Pokemon fans agree that was a really good season and for a lot of good reasons. Though I think some fans would think the original is, but I'm not going to get into that subject. Anyway.
Anyways, we are approaching an hour now, so I might wrap this up soon, but always happy to have a discussion about Pokemon.
Yay! I will say, though I liked Brock, to be perfectly honest, I kind of found him annoying at times to where it's like with every Nurse Joy, every Officer Jenny, literally any girl that comes his way, he has to have his little moment thing. I hated that. Like, that's one of the reasons why I kind of, to be honest, stopped liking Team Rocket because they would always say that exact same opening. And you know what would happen. They're just going to go flying away. You know what would happen with Brock. He's just going to get rejected or someone's just going to pull on his ear away. So
Yeah.
sometimes I just kind of found them annoying.
It was predictable. That was my favorite part of Brock's character. It's what made me feel sorry for him too. The fact like his whole life is traveling with Ash, meeting attractive women, and striking out, or having Misty pull him away.
What I question more is the fact that you've had Ash, you've had so many girls, like you've traveled with so many girls, yet you've never done anything.
Yeah, Ash never. Everyone always said Ash and Misty are going to get together, but then it was Ash and Serena, I guess, is the one who clearly had a thing for Ash. But
Yeah, that was obvious. Though I'm not gonna get into shipping wars because that's just not fun for anyone. I'm just gonna state that.
Everyone can check out the Twitter feed Mag said about that if you'd like to hear her thoughts.
Oh no. No.
Cyberpunk Agorist says, I really wish they would make an open world Pokemon game. That would be really cool.
I
But
want that so bad.
That would be really cool.
I remember I talked to you actually about this to where I wanted to make a Pokemon game to where if you wanted to be a nurse, you can play a game where you're trying to become like the best nurse. Or if you want to be a breeder, you can try to get try to breed the most rarest or best, be the best breeder or other stuff like that. Try to go into other jobs positions because there are so many different jobs in Pokemon, but all we ever see is just one. We never get to explore any of the other stuff, and I would really want that, but I don't know. I don't think that'll ever happen, and it makes me sad.
Manny K-Built says we went from talking about War with Iran to anime.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like I said, this is an informal stream. It is interesting. There are some common themes that always come up in my streams. Some of them very serious, some of them very not serious. But Patrick Rooney said the lives we lead, which fair enough. And you know, I'm just gonna say this. This is my opinion. I'm sure other people disagree, but I don't particularly care for. I'm not gonna say the content, but I don't particularly care for YouTubers who have the mentality where, like, I'm a serious commentator. I only make like hardcore serious content that changes the world. I don't I don't have time for YouTubers who are somewhere in between. Who make entertainment based or comedy based content. That's not I only deal with other serious YouTubers. My opinion, if you see yourself as if that's how you see yourself in your content, you ought to be in a university somewhere becoming a professor, because that's that's the serious world of academics. If you're going to primarily be on the internet, on YouTube, I enjoy people who put out all kinds of content. Some of it serious, some entertaining, some that's a little in between. And everyone's free to run their channel however they wish. But I think if you could, considering if YouTube is your primary platform and you don't have a PhD, you're not working in a university, you ought to lighten up a little bit.
I would say I agree and disagree with that statement towards the fact that I think people who are like that, if you want to go for like straight facts like all the time, like you want to go to like really good sources, you can go to them. And if you really want to learn something, I think they're a really good outlet to go to. But the problem I've also seen is when you're doing them, like this can even go for outside of YouTube when you're doing like speeches for people. I remember when I'm taking public speaking, so I'm learning a little bit about this kind of stuff. You want to make it entertaining. If all you talk about is just a straight facts and whatever not, it can be rather boring for people. So that's why you want to have a really lively tone, or that's why you want to bring in images, or that's why you want to like fluctuate your voice every once in a while. Bring something that isn't just monotone, same voice all the time, or just here's what we're talking about today, whatever kind of stuff. So I think that there needs to be a good balance between entertaining stuff and stuff that's really serious, whatever not. So you keep your audience engaged, but not making it so you just stray away from the other stuff. Stray away from the core of your channel. And I cannot speak.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, anyways, thanks for everyone coming hanging out. I'm gonna wrap this up. Again, more content will be coming back next week. This weekend, I just need some time to both get some of my content moved onto BitTube and wrap up blog posts that I'm falling behind on, which correspond to the videos. I will post the link to BitTube one more time and remind everyone that BitTube now has a app that can be downloaded.
If you want to support this guy, go on there. Oh, I might ask a little more detail after the stream, but I remember before you were going to be like, I'm going to have some like exclusive videos for like BitChute, but I don't know if that really ever actually started happening. So are you going to do kind of like that same treatment to try to transfer your audience over there? Or are you just going to, what's your plan for that, basically?
Not everything is definite yet, but I do want to encourage people to use other platforms besides YouTube. But I know the biggest complaint when I made a BitChute exclusive video was the fact that BitChute has no app, and a lot of people rely on watching videos on phones. BitChute is still a great platform, but at least now BitTube has an app. So I might make a video that will exclusively be on BitTube. We will see about that.
Download the app today.
All right. And for the record, they're not paying me to promote them. So I'm just saying it appears to be another good video platform that's coming up. So anyways, thanks for everybody for hanging out. Well, as we said, covered a wide swath of topics, some of them serious, some of them absolutely not. But I hope you enjoyed. And as always, that is my 2 cents. So take it for what it's worth.